First, the batter, which is super simple. You want 2 tablespoons of cornstarch per cup of AP flour, and here we have 4 cups of flour, so 8 tablespoons of cornstarch plus salt and pepper. Whisk to mix thoroughly. Then whisk in cold water. I ended up adding just shy of 4 cups, and now that I actually figured out my recipe, I would whisk the flour into the water the next time, and that's a good rule of thumb in baking and batter making if you want to end up with a smooth batter. Nevertheless, I managed to beat the lumps out after some persuasive whisking. The longer you have to whisk, the longer you work the gluten, which makes for a chewier pancake. I like that for this, but just keep that in mind. Not just for Pajeon, but for other batter-based things. No one wants a chewy buttermilk pancake. Anyways, you then want to add 1 egg for every 2 cups of flour, so that's 2 eggs for this batter. Different flours may hydrate differently, so take note of the consistency here. Start by whisking the flour into 3 cups of water and then adjust by adding more water once everything is incorporated. And now onto the vegetables after a quick safety tip. If you're cutting anything cylindrical like this zucchini or carrots, etc., slice a little bit off of one side to make a surface that will prevent the pieces from rolling when you're cutting into them. Then cut it all into planks and shingle them across your board so that you can just run your knife through for a rough julienne, like this. Now this is a scallion pancake, so the majority of it is obviously scallions. Cut the stalks into manageable lengths, about the same as the zucchini, and then split the white section down the middle lengthwise to make them more palatable when cooked. I love the addition of hot peppers, but bell peppers are good too, and the red ones would add a pop of color contrast. Next, mix the vegetables into the batter, which is really hard to do while trying to hold a camera, but you want there to be enough batter to liberally coat all the veggies, and not pictured here is some grated garlic that I added. You can also use garlic powder if you have it. And the batter's done. But before you start frying all of them off, test a little bit to taste for seasoning. And for that, we're using a non-stick pan with a generous layer of canola oil on medium heat. If you've ever had Pajeon at a restaurant, it probably was a big shareable size that was cut into pizza slices. To achieve that, you first spread an even, thin layer onto the pan by ladling into the middle and spreading outwards, covering the entire surface of the pan and making sure that the vegetables are spread evenly in one layer only. And make sure that you hear a sizzle when the batter hits the oil. That means it's hot enough. If you start frying when the oil is cold, you'll end up with a greasy pancake. Cook until you see translucent spots throughout where the Pajeon has cooked from the bottom up. Then peek underneath for color and you're ready for the fun part, the flip. And while you generally want to make sure your pan has enough oil, right before you flip is not the time to add it. That would cause a pretty messy and dangerous splash, so let it dry out a little when it's close to ready, and then add oil afterwards. Then fry until the other side is golden brown, and feel free to flip multiple times if needed. For those of you that want to avoid grease on the floor, have young children running around, or just don't see this being the day you master the art of pan tossing, make smaller Pajeon. That way you can flip each one with a spatula. And I didn't have any seafood on hand, but squid or any shellfish would be a delicious addition to the batter. You'll see I chose to cut it like Chicago pizza. I prefer smaller squares over big triangles, but for Pajeon, not pizza. The sauce I serve it with has soy sauce, thinly sliced onion, sugar, vinegar, garlic, a splash of water, and gochugaru, which is a Korean chili flake, but use whatever combination of those you have on hand. And now for a variation, the Kimchi-jeon or the kimchi pancake. This is one of my personal favorites and perfectly accompanied by an ice-cold, cheap beer. Simply replace as much of the water in the batter you can with the ripe kimchi juice, using water only if needed to get to the desired consistency. Then mix in just a handful of the same vegetables as the Pajeon and at least double that in kimchi. Or you could do all kimchi. Either way, lots of kimchi. And then it's the same method as Pajeon to fry these up, and I rarely reach for sauce with this one. It's got so much balance on its own with the acidity from the fermentation of the kimchi and the fattiness of the fried batter. If anything, just a little dip in some plain soy sauce.